Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Brev. Welcome to another MLB The Show 21 video. As I'm sure you guys can tell from the title and what you're seeing on screen, we had an absolutely insane run to World Series this season. I wanted to go ahead and make this video and try to provide some insight into why I had so much success. And we're not going to be focusing on mechanical stuff really at all. I really want to talk about like the state of the meta and how I went about countering everything that people are doing. Obviously, I've been playing this game at a very high level for a very long time, and even I don't expect to hit 470 in a season, so I'm sure I got lucky. I'm sure some things went my way, but overall just an amazing season. And I'm not making this video to brag. I really just wanted to show you guys that I had a ton of success in some of the strategies I used to help me get there. I really want to make a video like this maybe every other week, just kind of diving into where the meta's at and what people are doing at the higher ratings. So as you can see on the screen in the top left, our season average was 470, our slugging was 1021, on base percentage 511, ERA 450, and whip 1.04. We did give up 14 runs in one of the games we played, so that ERA was significantly lower in every other game that we played. And then obviously the on base percentage 41 points above the average, just goes to show how good patience is right now. Obviously, since we made World Series last season, we started at 700 rating. We went 9-0 to get up into 900 rating and get the World Series pack. And just wanted to get this out of the way in the beginning as well. I do not contact swing. I'm going to show some clips from gameplay at the end of this video, and I just don't use it. So that may have actually contributed to me having higher power numbers overall. I don't use contact swing because I don't want it to become my crutch, and then if they were ever to patch it and I had to go back to X swinging, I think I would be a worse player overall. So I did in fact use normal swing for just about every single swing in this run. So let's start talking about some things in the meta and how things have really shapen up at the beginning of this ranked season. So things that are typically true most of the time on this game, and in the long term they will become more true moving forward. The first one is lineup construction. It's usually better to have a balanced lineup, so like right left right left right left all the way down. Additionally, righties with reverse splits are always very good because typically you face right-handed pitching a lot more than you face left-handed pitching. A lot of the good 99s we will see this year are going to be right-handed as well. However, this season is not that case. We are in a really weird meta right now where there's a lot of popular left-handed pitchers, and so I wanted to show you guys my splits in terms of my at-bats. So we took 120 at-bats versus right-handed pitching and 163 at-bats versus left-handed pitching. One of the only seasons I can recall where I face lefties more than I face righties. Obviously 9 games is not the largest sample size to be looking at, but it just goes to show how popular a lot of these left-handed starting pitchers are. I also think it has something to do with the fact that people are letting their starters go a lot more innings than in years past. This has to do with the fact that there are starters that are just significantly better than most of the relievers in the game right now, as well as the energy glitch where pitchers aren't losing energy the way they're supposed to. So all this has led to a whirlwind in the meta where I actually face left-handed pitching more often than right-handed pitching. So that's really interesting, and we actually went ahead and countered this with our lineup, which we'll get to in a bit. So to continue off of that point, I'm going to go through my game history and let you guys know the starting pitchers that I faced in total for the whole run. So we ended up facing Cliff Lee twice. It was our first game here, and then also this crazy game he actually started Cliff Lee. Even though Edward Cabrera got the loss, he brought him in relief. We ended up facing Tom Glavine 3 times. We faced Edward Cabrera 3 times as a starter and 1 time as a reliever. He was actually the only right-handed starting pitcher we queued into, and it happened 3 times, so that should tell you a lot about how good that card is. And then in our final World Series game, we queued into Garrett Crochet. So in total, in our 9 games, we faced Lee twice, Glavine 3 times, and Crochet once, so that's 6 lefties, and we faced Cabrera 3 times, and he was the only righty we faced. I think this is actually very telling about where the meta's at right now with starting pitching. Basically, the only really top-tier righties that people are rolling with are Cabrera and Burns, and I think Cabrera is significantly higher tier than Burns. And aside from that, every other really good pitcher right now is left-handed. This problem's probably only going to get worse as well with Vita Blue being added to the game as a World Series reward. And so I just wanted to point this out as we go and dive into my lineup construction so we can kind of figure out what I was thinking when I set everything up. So this is the squad we did go 9-0 with that 470 average. This is the starting lineup we were rolling out. Now this account does not have the live series collection done. In fact, I don't have any of the divisions done. However, I do have 99 Jackie Robinson. There are definitely a lot of cards that you could add to a lineup like this to make it better. I just didn't have them. So let's talk about our lineup construction and why we went ahead and made the team like this. So first off, you can see I'm only rocking with 2 lefties, those being Jim Thome and Trent Grisham. If you're wondering why I'm still starting Trent Grisham, here are my numbers online with him. I just can't bring myself to take the guy out of the lineup with numbers like this. There are obviously much better options on paper, but for some reason this guy is just really clicking for me and I didn't want to ruin a good thing. However, if I could go back and read redo it, I probably would take Grisham out of the lineup for a right-handed outfielder. I think with the state of the meta right now, I don't think you should be running more than 2 left-handers in your starting lineup. If you're running 3 or more, I really think it's a mistake. Switch hitters are obviously in a really good spot right now as well, since they get to bat against both-handedness with an advantage. I did only have Ronnie Mauricio in our lineup as a switch hitter, but obviously if I had Chipper Jones, I would have used him. I do still prefer Joe Torre at catcher over switch hitting catcher options like Matt Wieters or Carlos Santana. That's just personal preference though. But yeah, the goal of this lineup, like I said, I probably would have substituted out Trent Grisham for a right-handed outfielder, and the goal is basically to stack righties and switch hitters and have a minimal amount of lefties. This obviously leaves us vulnerable to Edward Cabrera, but that's where we're going to use our bench to kind of counter some of this stuff. Here is the bench we were using. Now there's a couple cards I could have upgraded for sure. If I had access to Trevor Story as my starting shortstop, I would put Mauricio on the bench over Justin Turner because he's a switch hitter and plays basically the same position. Bichette I would keep on the bench. I wouldn't start him though because I really value defense in the outfield and I don't want him being sluggish out there. Player of the month Brandon Crawford I think is a really good bench bat as well. A lefty you can bring in to counter Edward Cabrera that plays a lot of infield positions. Ohtani on the bench, obviously we could just upgrade this to like Sizemore or Sean Green. That's just like a direct upgrade. And then if I had AL collection done, I would be starting David Ortiz and moving Tommy to the bench where Willie Stargell is. So obviously this team could use a lot of upgrades, but I just kind of wanted to show you how I'm structuring it, and hopefully the picture is starting to get a little bit more clear for y'all. So what's our strategy with a lineup like this? Well, in terms of both quality and quantity, the numbers say that you are going to face a top tier left-handed starter more often than a right-handed starter as it stands right now. So we are stacking our lineup with a significant amount of right-handed batters as well as switch hitters if we have access to them. Obviously use switch hitters that you think are good. Don't just go hunting for lower tier switch hitters. If there's a righty that's better than them, go ahead and use that. And then we are keeping our lineup down to a minimal amount of left-handed bats. Like I said, if I could do it over, I'd probably only run one of them. We're just trying to play a numbers game. We're more likely to face Lee, Leiter, Valenzuela, Glavin than we are just Cabrera and Burns right now. And for the record, this meta stuff gets a lot more random and inconsistent at lower difficulties, so take this with a grain of salt. So obviously stacking our lineup with right-handed batters and a bit of switch hitting makes us vulnerable to Edward Cabrera, who is everyone's nemesis right now. And I forgot to mention on the bench, someone instead of like Brandon Crawford you could maybe consider running is like Kyle Seager. So the plan is to go into the game with our lineup set this way, and then if we do in fact queue into Edward Cabrera, Corbin Burns, or another right-handed pitcher, we will then use our bench to platoon some guys. So for instance, if we queued into Cabrera, we could go ahead and swap Groshans with Brandon Crawford, and that makes our lineup a little bit more balanced. Additionally, if we were feeling Ohtani more than Crawford, we could go ahead and put Ohtani in left, Jackie at second, and then Simeon at third like that. And I'm just using Groshans as an example. If there are right-handed guys in your lineup that you don't do terribly great with, then those are the guys you really want to target with your bench. I do think it's important right now to have more left-handed bats on your bench than right-handed bats, not only for platooning, but for the fact that relief pitching is very interesting right now as well. So basically every top-tier relief pitcher in the game right now, with the exception of a couple lefties, is right-handed. All of the high overall relievers are right-handed, and so left-handed bench preference is definitely better. And that's also why platooning these guys early on in the game with left-handed bats doesn't even become that much of a weakness later on, because a lot of the top-tier relievers they're going to want to bring in late are right-handed. So overall, I think this structure is very consistent, because what we're doing is we're playing for the fact that we'll face a lefty starter. If it doesn't work out, we bring in some lefty bats to counter like Edward Cabrera, and then we're still okay later on to face relievers. And if they do in fact land on a lefty starting pitcher, then we can just roll with this lineup with a lot of handedness advantage, and when they start to make relief pitching changes later on, then we can go ahead and bring these guys off the bench as well. I hope what I'm saying is making sense. There is some rhyme to this reason, and I hope it's going to help you guys out kind of structuring things this way. This is of course subject to change. The funny thing about metas is that when people start running counter metas, they actually become primary metas, which then have their own counters. So we could start to see some things shift over the next week or two, but this was just my experience. So if I could do it over again, I'd probably start Torrey Hunter over Trent Grisham and then just go ahead and roll with this lineup here. If you really struggle against Edward Cabrera, like that's the worst pitcher you ever want to see, then you can run 2 lefties. I think it's better than 1 lefty. And then if you go ahead and platoon 2 guys as well, that'll end up giving you 4 lefties on top of whatever switch hitters you have. Obviously, after you platoon these lefties, they could just bring a starter out of the pen from the left side, like bringing Cliff Lee out of the bullpen, but there's not a whole lot you can do about that. And in my experience, it doesn't really happen that often unless somebody is really close to like Championship Series or World Series. So I hope that made sense. If you guys have any questions about this lineup construction in this meta right now, feel feel free to drop them down below, but we're not done. Let's talk about pitching now. So this was actually the rotation that I was rolling with this ranked season. One guy that may stand out is Quinn Priester. We'll talk about him, but my other guys were meta picks. So Corbin Burns, Edward Cabrera, obviously Valenzuela I still love, Cliff Lee I still love. I don't have Tom Glavine. Like I said, I haven't done any live series collection, so I went ahead and rolled with Quinn Priester as my 5th starter. There's not much to say about this rotation besides Priester, to be honest. I think just rolling with the meta guys is better than trying to be cute right now, although I will provide you guys some sleeper picks for starting pitching that I think are pretty good in this meta that may not be expected. As far as bullpen, obviously we don't have the greatest bullpen in the world, but we are running 4 lefties, 4 righties. I've considered multiple times just selling this Billy Wagner because he almost never gets into the game. Like I said, starting pitching is just ruling the world right now. Now that I've made World Series, I may go ahead and do that. But the thing that sucks about relief pitching is you don't need them until you do. So if I ended up in a spot where I could really use a Billy Wagner in a close game and I didn't have him, that would obviously suck. So let's talk about why I started Quinn Priester. Just want to say in the beginning, I don't think Quinn Priester is on the same level as a lot of guys in the meta right now. However, I do think he gets bumped up quite a bit from being a counter to the counter meta. Honestly, a lot of the people I played on my way up were using similar lineup construction to this, lots of righties and switch hitters. And so because of this meta we're in with lineup construction, I actually think hard throwing right-handed pitching is in an incredible spot right now. It's possibly one of the reasons why Edward Cabrera is dominating ranked right now. It's because everyone's trying to hedge against all the lefties in the game. And the reason I say hard throwing righties are in a really good spot right now as opposed to just finesse righties is because when you're facing these lineups with a ton of right-handed bats, obviously the velocity is a lot harder to deal with in right-on-right situations. So obviously I rolled with Quinn Priester. I think he's in a really good spot right now, but I do have some sleeper picks for meta pitchers that are in a really good spot right now that can kind of help counter all this lineup construction stuff. Obviously, Corey Kluber with that high hits per 9 throwing from the right side is a really good option. Not a flamethrower, which is not ideal, but the hits per 9 definitely help. Additionally, guys like Michael Kopech with outlier from the right side are really strong right now, countering a bunch of right-handed bats with a 102-mile-an-hour four-seam. I really think this 87 Kopech is one of the most slept-on starting pitcher cards in the game right now with how everybody's structuring their lineups. Obviously, Jacob deGrom was just given outlier as well, so he fits the bill for this. And then obviously a card that's on absolutely nobody's radar right now that I think is just insane in this meta is this 92 Nolan Ryan. Crazy per 9s, everything he throws is hard. Obviously the control could use some work, but just a really good meta for this card. Those are some options for y'all, but if I had to do it over again, I probably would run with the exact same 5 starting pitchers. So now that we got all the lineup stuff and the rotation stuff out of the way, I just wanted to touch briefly on some stuff that happens in game that can help you perform a little bit better in this meta. It's no secret that pitching is dominating the upper levels of ranked right now. Pinpoint pitching is incredibly strong. We have a lot of really good starting pitcher cards in the game, and we all know that with great power comes great responsibility, and some of my opponents were not using that responsibility correctly. So what do I mean by that? Well, pinpoint pitching is incredibly good. A lot of these starting pitcher cards are incredibly good, so that means very often your opponent is able to put the pitches relatively where they want to every single time. This does provide challenges mechanically, but it also means that a lot of my opponents were incredibly repetitive with their sequencing. There were tons of occasions where I pretty much knew what pitch was coming before it was thrown because our opponent was just on autopilot with their sequencing. And so that's just one big piece of advice I want to give to you guys for as far as in-game play right now. Be patient, work walks, work the count, try to figure out your opponent's sequencing and really take notes about what's going on, because eventually your opponent will slip into some autopilot and you got to be able to take advantage of it when that happens. If you guys have watched my content for a long time, you know that I preach patience at the plate a lot and being able to pick up on tendencies a lot, but it's even more important right now since a lot of the success I had at the plate was more predictive than reactive. So I just wanted to go ahead and round out this video with some in-game clips of one game in particular that I played. In this game, our opponent started Tom Glavine and we ended up putting up 9 earned runs on him through 1 inning pitched. I found our opponent to be incredibly repetitive with his sequencing in this one and we really took advantage of it, so I wanted to show you guys some of this stuff so you can know what to look for. So we started off the game with a leadoff double from Byron Buxton, and now I want you guys to pay attention to his sequencing. This was incredibly repetitive. First pitch sinker, second pitch circle changeup, my opponent was throwing an absolutely insane amount of second pitch changeups, and we picked up on this very early. This one was right down the middle. We ripped it for an RBI double with Jackie Robinson. This would become a recurring theme throughout the game, and lucky for us, he hung a lot of the changeups he threw as well. So the fact that we knew a circle changeup was coming a lot of the time second pitch, and he was also hanging it a lot, really allowed us to tee off. Here we are, very next batter. He starts us off with a four-seam fastball outside the zone. We've already picked up on a second pitch circle changeup twice. What does he throw us? 1-0. He throws us a circle changeup right down the middle. So especially with a runner in scoring position, we are definitely letting it rip at that pitch. Already we're up 2-0. Our opponent does try to make an adjustment in the next at bat. He goes first pitch sinker and then second pitch sweeping curve. It wasn't a changeup, but we were looking for it. Decent adjustment by him, but the concept's still the same, still sinker then off speed. He tries a slider inside, misses his spot, and then tries to come back with a get me over sinker 2-1, and we are ready for that one. We make it 4-0 very early on. And then what does he do in the very next at bat? First pitch sinker, second pitch circle changeup. Now we didn't actually pull the trigger on the circle changeup because it was in a really good spot, but we saw it the whole way, and by this point already up 4-0. We are very aware of our opponent's sequencing, and he hasn't even recorded an out yet. I'm really not trying to bash on my opponent at all. I just want to point out that these are the things that I look for in game when I'm playing, and they're incredibly valuable to pick up on. A significant number of players when they're pitching on this game don't even try to make adjustments off pitches that you're crushing, so if you just pay attention, you may find out a lot of information. Now our opponent does get through the rest of the first inning unscathed thanks to this ridiculous feedback. I mean, what is this? Lazy fly ball to center on that swing. I don't even know what to say, man. We were all over it, but regardless, we're up 4-0. And I wanted to show you guys the at bat to end the inning. He started first pitch slider, second pitch, of course, circle changeup. So we grounded out on that one, but still the same sequence. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be a changeup. It was a changeup most of the time, but our opponent is just repeatedly going sinker first pitch and then off speed second pitch. Here we are in the second inning, leading it off with Joe Torre. What are we looking at? First pitch sinker. Of course, we are keeping the slowest bat of all time now that it's the second pitch of the at bat. What does he throw us? He throws us a circle changeup outside. So again, repetition from our opponent. We're pretty much all over him right now, and I don't even think he knows it because we figured him out in less than 2 innings. Joe Torre and Quinn Priester get on with singles, so that leaves us first and second, nobody out, in the top of our order, starting with Byron Buxton. Can anyone guess what type of sequencing we might see in this at bat here? Let's start off with a first pitch sinker. I'm sure you guys can tell what is coming next pitch. What does he go with? Circle changeup below the zone. So we were able to take that because we pretty much knew it was coming. Now, historically, he has been going with off speed after off speed for the third pitch, even though we haven't gotten there very much. The third pitch to Joe Torre was a hanging sweeping curve. So I'm really still keeping a slow bat. And then the third pitch of the at bat, he goes ahead and throws another circle changeup right down the middle, and just like that, we are up 7-1, but it does not stop there. He goes ahead and starts warming up a different pitcher here in an attempt to not let this game get out of hand. Literally, the next batter is Jackie Robinson. Any guesses on what we will see first pitch? We were obviously sitting on it. We want to carry this momentum forward, and he threw it right down the middle. So we rip that obvious first pitch sinker for a perfect single. Again, not trying to bash my opponent at all, but when you are sequencing like this as a pitcher, it is a clear weakness, and you can see just by how we've teed off already that he's got to do something about it. The very next batter is Jim Thome, and it's just getting insane at this point. I swear if you guys just watch your gameplay back, you will see a lot more of this stuff than you think you will. Any guesses on the sequencing in this at bat? I'll let you take a guess on the first pitch. My money's on a sinker. There it is. I'll let you take a guess on the second pitch. My money's on a circle change, and my bat's slow, and he throws a sweeping curve right down the middle, so we're able to rip another perfect single left on left. And at this point, our opponent is seriously rattled. He does go ahead and remove Tom Glavine at this point for Shane Green. I will say my opponent's sequencing was a lot better once he went to the bullpen, but unfortunately, it was a little bit too little too late here. So just by picking up on these patterns, we were able to give ourselves an insane cushion early on in this one, and this is a lot of the stuff that I look for when I'm playing in-game. So I hope it helped you guys out. And so with that, I think I've said just about everything I want to say on the meta right now. I really hope this video was helpful for you guys. Let me know if you like the structure of it, if you like the video in general, what I could do to improve as well. And I'd also love to hear what you're doing right now to have more success in MLB The Show. Thank you guys for all the support this year. Take care, and I'll see y'all next time.